There is a very specific, suffocating kind of danger that comes disguised as a friend. We are taught to look for red flags in our romantic partners, to guard our hearts against the people we sleep next to. But nobody warns you about the woman sitting across from you at brunch, pouring your mimosa, smiling with all her teeth while meticulously calculating the exact moment she is going to detonate your entire life. I learned the hard way that the most lethal sabotage doesn't come from a screaming enemy. It comes from someone who knows exactly how you take your coffee, someone who waits for you to turn your back so she can slip a match into the gasoline. I let her play her game, I let her lie. And then, I let her walk blindly into the trap she built for me. Vance and I had the kind of relationship that felt like exhaling after holding your breath for a decade. He was 36, fiercely loyal, and possessed this quiet, grounding energy that instantly neutralized my anxieties. We rarely argued. We spent our weekends cooking, laughing until our ribs ached, and building a genuine, rock-solid foundation. There was only one jagged little stone in our shoe. Her name was Sloane. Sloane was Vance's best friend and former roommate. To say she had boundary issues would be a catastrophic understatement. She had previously lived with Vance and his ex-girlfriend, and after the ex cheated and moved across the country, Sloane lingered like a ghost haunting a house that wasn't hers. It was painfully obvious to everyone in our periphery that Sloane was waiting in the wings, hoping Vance's heartbreak would magically transform into romantic interest. He was entirely oblivious, brushing off her clinginess as platonic loyalty. Against every screaming instinct in my gut, I tried to embrace her. I wanted to be the cool, accommodating girlfriend. I didn't want to be the toxic cliché who demanded her partner cut off his female friends, so I let Sloane in. We started hanging out one-on-one, and I genuinely thought we were building a friendship. But then the psychological warfare began. It was always subtle. We would be sitting in my living room, splitting a bottle of Pinot Noir, and she would casually examine her fingernails and sigh. "You know, Vance told me the other day he just doesn't know if he's truly over his ex," she would murmur, letting the lie hang heavy in the air. "I'm only telling you because I care about you." She planted these toxic little seeds of insecurity, watering them with fake concern. Almost simultaneously, Vance started acting distant. Our effortless connection grew tense, clouded by bizarre trust issues that seemed to materialize out of thin air. One evening, Sloane threw an absolute tantrum because Vance chose to come to my apartment for a quiet movie night instead of staying out at a dive bar doing tequila shots with her. The mask was slipping. My friends warned me. They saw the venom dripping from her smiles, but I stubbornly insisted I could handle it. That stubbornness almost cost me my sanity. It happened on a damp Friday night. Sloane had invited me out for drinks, claiming she wanted to clear the air and celebrate a promotion she'd just received. I agreed, eager to smooth over the recent friction. We went to a crowded downtown lounge. I remember the neon lights reflecting off the sticky mahogany bar. I remember finishing my second vodka soda. And then nothing. The blackout didn't feel like drinking too much. It didn't feel like a gradual descent into intoxication. It felt like a heavy, suffocating velvet curtain violently dropping over my brain. I woke up staring at a popcorn ceiling I didn't recognize, my skull throbbing with an apocalyptic rhythm. The air smelled of stale sweat and lavender detergent. I shifted, and a wave of agonizing nausea ripped through my stomach. I was lying on top of the bed covers, fully clothed, right down to my denim jacket and boots. Then I realized I wasn't alone. A man I had never seen before was sitting in a chair in the corner of the room, scrolling on his phone. Panic, raw and primal, seized my throat. Before I could even open my mouth to scream, the bedroom door swung open. Sloane stood in the doorway. She surveyed the scene, me disoriented on the bed, the strange man in the corner. "What the fuck?" she gasped, her voice dripping with exaggerated theatrical horror. And then she turned on her heel and walked out, slamming the front door behind her. I scrambled backward against the headboard, my breathing frantic. The man stood up, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. Hey, it's okay, you're okay," he said quickly, his voice surprisingly gentle. "My name is Declan, nothing happened." "I promise you, absolutely nothing happened." Through the pounding in my ears, Declan explained the nightmare of the past 12 hours. He was an acquaintance of Sloane's from a mutual friend group. According to him, we had all arrived at my apartment around 2:30 in the morning. I was completely incoherent, violently ill, and unable to stand. He said Sloane had dumped me on the bed and casually announced she was leaving at 4 in the morning. Declan hadn't felt right leaving me. He noticed the medical alert bracelet on my wrist. I am a type 1 diabetic. You were throwing up uncontrollably, Declan said, his eyes filled with genuine concern. I didn't know if your blood sugar was crashing or if you had alcohol poisoning. I couldn't in good conscience leave you alone to choke or slip into a coma. Sloane just bilayed. It was currently 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Sloane had left me with a total stranger at 4 in the morning, only to casually stroll back in 9 hours later to catch me. I dragged myself to the bathroom and was violently sick again. The physical toll on my body was terrifying. After guzzling water and sobbing through a total mental breakdown, I asked Declan to leave. He offered to call an ambulance, but I insisted I just needed a cab. I spent the rest of the afternoon tearing through my apartment looking for my phone. I finally found it shoved deep inside a kitchen drawer, a place I would never put it. By the time I dragged my battered body to the hospital emergency room, it was nearly 8 at night. I sat on the sterile paper of the examination table as the doctor delivered the grim reality. Given the timeline, the extreme vomiting, and the sudden, complete memory loss from 2 drinks, it was highly probable I had been drugged. Because I had spent the last 15 hours relentlessly throwing up and flushing my system with water, the substance was likely gone, but the symptoms painted a clear, chilling picture. I sat in the cold hospital room staring at my phone. I had called Vance's number 6 times. Every single call went straight to voicemail. When I finally took a taxi to Vance's place to explain the nightmare, I didn't even make it to the door. Sitting on the concrete of the hallway were 3 cardboard boxes. My clothes, my toothbrush, the coffee mug I left on his nightstand, everything was packed up. He had blocked me on every platform. It took 3 agonizing days to finally get Vance on the phone. When he answered, his voice was like ice. Sloane had gotten to him first. She had played the devastated, reluctant truth-teller, sobbing as she told him she had walked into my apartment and found me tangled in the sheets with Declan, completely coherent and unapologetic. I think I was drugged, Vance, I pleaded, my voice cracking. Sloane set me up. She's been my best friend for 7 years, he snapped back. Why would she make that up? She said you were all over him. We're done. The dial tone echoed in my ear. Most people would have crumpled right there. They would have mourned the unfairness of it all and walked away. But a cold, absolute fury settled into my bones. I was not going to let this sociopath drug me, ruin my reputation, destroy my relationship, and walk away with clean hands. I needed an airtight case. I became a ghost, quietly moving through the shadows of our social circle, collecting my ammunition. First, I went back to the lounge. I knew the bartender, a sharp-eyed woman who remembered our visit perfectly. She confirmed that Sloane had ordered our second round while I was in the restroom. Next, I met with Declan at a coffee shop. He reiterated his story, confirming that Sloane was acting erratic and entirely unbothered by my terrifying physical state. The timeline was the smoking gun. If Sloane had actually believed I was cheating, why did she leave at 4 in the morning, only to return at 1 in the afternoon? She left to establish an alibi, and she came back to orchestrate the discovery. But circumstantial evidence wouldn't break Vance's blind loyalty. I needed a confession. And to get a confession, I had to do the hardest thing imaginable. I had to pretend she had won. I reached out to Sloane. I played the pathetic, broken girl. I texted her saying that Vance wouldn't listen to me, that I knew things looked bad, but I still valued her friendship and wanted to clear the air. Her ego couldn't resist the opportunity to gloat in person. She agreed to stay neutral. Slowly, carefully, I began working my way back into Vance's life. We met for coffee. I didn't push the Declan narrative. I simply reminded him of who I was. The humor, the connection, the peace we used to share. He missed me. I could see the conflict tearing him apart. We started hanging out again quietly. The second Sloane sensed she was losing her grip, she panicked. I went to Vance's house one afternoon. I was standing on the porch for less than 10 seconds when Vance's phone buzzed. It was a text from Sloane, who had been obsessively monitoring the doorbell camera from her office. Why is she there? What is she doing at the house? Vance looked at the text, his brow furrowing. For the first time, I saw the blinders slipping from his eyes. Why is she acting like a prison warden? He muttered. Vance, I said softly, I need you to leave the house when she gets home from work. Give us an hour. Just trust me. When Sloane walked through the front door at 6 o'clock, she froze, her eyes narrowing as she saw me sitting calmly at the kitchen island. Where's Vance? She demanded, dropping her keys. Running an errand, I said smoothly. I kept my hands folded on the counter. Right beneath my right palm, my phone was face down, the voice memo app recording every single breath in the room. I just want to understand, Sloane. I said, keeping my tone perfectly level, devoid of any anger or malice. Can you just walk me through what you saw that morning? Because my memory is completely gone and it's killing me. She sighed, slipping into her practiced routine. Look, I'm sorry, but I walked in and you two were in bed together. You were awake, you looked right at me. But Declan said you left at 4 in the morning, I countered gently. Why did you leave if I was so sick? She hesitated, the silence on the recording was thick and damning. I didn't leave at 4, I left at like 8, he's lying. So you left at 8, but the bartender said we left the lounge at 2. What happened during those 6 hours? She started to scramble, the smooth veneer cracked. We were just hanging out, you were fine, you were drinking water. Declan said I was vomiting violently. The hospital confirmed I had symptoms consistent with being drugged. Who bought that second round of vodka sodas, Sloane? I don't know, she snapped, her voice rising an octave. You're trying to twist my words. I told Vance what I saw and that's it. For 30 minutes, I calmly dismantled her timeline. I brought up the bartender, I brought up the hospital records, I brought up the missing phone in the drawer. With every question, she contradicted herself. She changed the time she left 3 different times. She admitted on tape that she had told Vance a slightly different version of events to protect his feelings. By the end of it, she was backed into a corner of her own making, stammering and furious. I know what you did, I said quietly, standing up. I know you lied to him, I know you set me up. I'm done playing your game and I'm done being your friend. I picked up my phone, stopped the recording and walked out of the house. Here is the brilliant part, I didn't run to Vance with the audio. If I had, she might have found a way to spin it. She might have claimed I intimidated her or tricked her. Instead, I waited to see exactly what lie she would construct about our conversation. When Vance called me that night, he sounded exhausted. Sloane just called me hyperventilating, he said. She said you cornered her in the kitchen. She said you threatened to punch her in the face if she didn't change her story to match yours. She said she doesn't feel safe in her own home. I smiled into the darkness of my apartment. Vance, I never raised my voice. I never threatened her. I don't know what to believe anymore, he sighed. She says she's terrified of you. If we're going to see each other, it has to be at your place. I'm looking for a new apartment. This is too much drama. I let it sit. I let Sloane marinate in her false victory. I let her parade around our mutual friends for 2 entire weeks, telling everyone who would listen that I was a violent, psychotic cheater who had threatened her life. I let her dig the grave so deep she would never be able to climb out. 2 weeks later, Vance was sitting on my sofa eating takeout. He was complaining about the tension at his house, how Sloane was constantly demanding his attention and playing the victim. Vance, I said softly, setting my fork down, I need you to listen to something. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memos, and pressed play. The sound of my calm, measured voice filled the room, followed immediately by Sloane's defensive, stammering lies. Vance sat frozen, his food forgotten. He listened as she changed the timeline. He listened as she admitted to altering the story she told him. And most importantly, he listened to the end of the conversation. No screaming. No threats of physical violence. Just me, quietly telling her I knew the truth and leaving. When the recording clicked off, the silence in my living room was absolute. I watched the realization wash over Vance's face. It was a physical transformation. The betrayal hit him like a freight train. The woman he had defended, the best friend he had trusted for 7 years, had not only fabricated a story to destroy his relationship, but had actively endangered my life and repeatedly lied to his face to manipulate his empathy. He didn't say a word. He stood up, kissed the top of my head, and walked out the door. Vance went straight home and packed a duffel bag. He didn't scream at Sloane. He simply told her he had heard the recording, that he knew she was a pathological liar, and that he was moving out immediately. He stayed on my couch for 3 weeks until he found a new lease. We didn't keep the secret. We sent a summarized message to the entire friend group, detailing the lies and confirming that I had the audio proof of her manipulation. The fallout was spectacular in its silence. Sloane didn't try to defend herself. She didn't send a frantic group text claiming the audio was doctored. She didn't lash out at Vance. When faced with irrefutable, undeniable proof of her own sociopathy, she simply vanished. She moved out of the house a month later, blocked everyone in the friend group, and faded into absolute obscurity. She had embarrassed herself so profoundly, so entirely, that she had no choice but to exile herself. That was 4 years ago. Today, Vance and I are still together. We share a beautiful home, a dog, and a life entirely devoid of toxic interference. We never fought about it again. The trust we rebuilt is unbreakable. There is a profound lesson in the art of letting someone hang themselves with their own rope. When someone is committed to destroying you, your loudest weapon is not anger. It is not screaming your truth from the rooftops or begging people to believe you. Your greatest weapon is silence. Let them talk. Let them build their fragile house of lies. Let them get comfortable. Because when the time comes to strike the match, the fire burns so much brighter when they've done all the work of pouring the gasoline themselves. If you've ever had to deal with a master manipulator, or if you just love the sweet, quiet satisfaction of absolute karma, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below if you've ever had a Sloan in your life and let me know how you handled it. Keep your circle tight, trust your gut, and I'll see you in the next story.